chapter, and this course specifically that we are covering is all about detection techniques, and we explain why detection techniques is important in so many occasions. But again, as a reminder and as like also a quick review for what we have covered this week. So the detection technique are there to really find out about anomalies and find out about any unauthorized access to our network or our system, and to really identify threats, and quickly in a timely manner we can respond to these threats. So this is what this course is all about, and this course will qualify you guys to be a SIM or an information security analyst. And what the SIM engineer will do, or one of his main responsibilities is basically to detect an attacks, to identify the threats, and then quickly escalate this issue to the IR team, which is the incident response team, and manage to really quickly find the remedies and contain the damage of these attacks. And again, the analogy that I used yesterday, and I keep telling you guys about it, is if you imagine if you are in a jail, okay, and you wanted really to protect the jail, so no one can really get out of this jail. So you will build fences, you know, you will have guards around the gates, okay, you have cameras, you have some dogs around also to go around the circle around the jail. So this is what we have covered in early beginning. It's all a protection techniques. So the gates, the guards, the dogs, you know, all of them are a really preventive techniques. It will stop someone to get outside the jail because, you know, the fence will be high, so it's going to be a barrier. The guards are here. Maybe you have a watching towers here, and this watching towers is with someone with a gun who's watching everyone around the jail. So basically, no one can get out. But then again, we have also some really guys that I would say that they are experts, and I'm sure that you guys, most of you have seen Prison Break, and the Prison Break, that if you are really determined to escape a prison, you can escape. So preventive technique will not really be able to defend us 100%. There will be always a gap, and that's why we need detection techniques to complete the pictures. So the detection techniques in the case of this jail is maybe to implement a camera system that is going to watch the surrounding area, okay, around the jail from everywhere. So this is the surrounding area. And the surrounding area is basically why we have the detection techniques, because you saying that, okay, maybe someone will come and someone will come here and will try to help this guy from inside to escape. So even if we have a fence, maybe he will give him a ladder to just jump out. Or maybe if we have a guard, maybe they will manage to take the guards down or bypass these guards. Maybe if we have a dogs, maybe they can throw some poisoned food for these dogs so that they can escape out. So I need also really to have a detection technique to complete the picture. Why? Because the detection techniques will able to get this guy who wanted to sneak out. So the camera system will be a good example for this, and we will connect all this camera to a control room, and that's what we mostly seen in movies, right? So you see it's a control cameras is connected to one centralized place, and someone over here are watching the 360 degrees around the jail, and you will find these guys are working 24/7. Basically, this guy is watching what's happening in the jail, surrounding all the time and within the jail. So when he notices any suspicious activities happening within the jail surrounding or within even the jail, okay, what will do, they will start to call maybe extra forces, or they will call for a responder to come around the jail and help them. So this is basically the idea here. The idea is to have someone is always watching 24/7, looking for any suspicious activity. And once we detect the suspicious activity, we really need quickly to respond to this activity before it become a disaster and one of these guys managed to escape. Okay, so this is what happened in reality. And what we do also in our computer system are the similar thing. So we need someone, okay, that he's gonna watch our systems, okay, our infrastructure, our critical infrastructure all the time. And how we will manage to look at the infrastructure and look for any threats all the time. So we have this engineer, we agreed that we will call him the SOC tier 1 engineer. So this is basically someone sitting in a screen, okay, and looking at his screen, and he getting feeds. This time it's not camera feeds. This is gonna comes from logs around your network, okay? So we mentioned in so many occasions that we have an IT systems, and the IT system basically consists of network, okay? So we have the network devices, and we have the network communication devices for LAN and WAN. We have already covered some of them, like routers, switches, firewall, you know, IDS and IPSs, all this kind of network devices. We have hardware, okay? We have operating systems, okay? OS. We have also application running on top of this operating system. So really, and also we have users who are using these systems also most of the time to do their job, to do their day-to-day jobs, okay? And we have also administrators who is also working in the same organization to really administrate the entire IT infrastructure. So in order for these guys really to see the surrounding, okay, I need a trained engineer who will be able to read the logs coming from the application level. So what is the application level? We have mentioned it yesterday. Some of the application level is something like a database, okay, maybe a mail server. Maybe today we'll look at the mail server. What do we mean by mail server? Okay, so maybe some of these applications are web application. So you need really the logs so you understand who's connecting to this application, okay, what permissions they are connecting with, what kind of activities they do in our application. So this is all of these logs are actually part of the application. So you can, if you log in locally in the web server, you can see all these messages between a certain user to the web application and the sync and everything, right? But we really need it in a centralized location. And I'll explain again why need it in a centralized location in 1 second. So we need all these legs in a centralized location, whether we are talking about mail or a web server or database or even a normal application like, for example, Microsoft Office application. Why? Because some of the Microsoft Office application is very important, because maybe you open an Excel file and this Excel file runs macros, so it will execute some code in your computer. So you really need to also have a logs from this kind of application into your system. Also, the operating system itself does come with backed with a lot of also logs. The most important one that we really wanted to focus on is the security logs. And the security logs, especially the one for login, the one for reading access permissions, the one for changing, modifying permission, the one for adding user and changing user on the system, the one that add processes or add maybe DN registry in the Windows. I need really to get all of these logs in a centralized location as well. Also, the network devices we talked about, there is two kind of network devices exist, one in the network level and one on the computer level. So in the one in the network level, like a firewall, IDS, IPSs, I need all these devices logs to be connected also to this screen. Okay, so I really need to see the big picture, how the incoming packets will come from the internet all the way to that it reached this user. So this will give me the full map, the full topology for what's happening since the packets arrive to my network until it's being delivered to my my machine. And also I need also some logs for this is specifically computer. So for example, if I have antivirus installed in this computer, I wanted to know what kind of report this antivirus is using. If we have an EDR solution installed, if we have next generation antivirus installed, I need to also to get the logs. Once you get the logs, also there is some logs related to this users over here. Okay, so this user over here, guys,
wrote and passed the Bipartisan Investor Protect Act to hire and train police. Working to fight crime, Gottheimer is endorsed by our
guys. Can you put me in mute?
I'm Josh Gottheimer, and I approve this message.
Hi, I'm Roger Grimes. I'm the data-driven
Hi,
evangelist before. And for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, I want to talk about
Josh. Okay, let me check. I think it's Asad.
Welcome back.
Okay, no worries. Okay, guys, sorry about that. So So it's okay. We managed to catch the intruder. So back to what I was saying, guys, before we just close this topic. Okay, is basically if I have also users who is using these systems, okay, in a day-to-day basis. So I really need to also monitor these users and send this monitoring to also my SIM solution. So there is technical controls that I talked about yesterday. It's called UBA, which is basically it's really about the behavior or using analytic to analyze the behavior of an users and send his activity to using طبعا machine learning and artificial intelligence, and send this activity to our log engineer, sorry, or our SIM engineer. So we'll be able also to analyze this, because we already understand that we have so many layers of logs, okay? But also it's important to see what this user are doing in a day-to-day basis, because sometimes this user is not within the organization. He's taking his laptop and he's going back home. So he's acting maybe maliciously at home, or maybe even within our network, he's acting maliciously. So I can really understand his behavior and understand his course of actions. And also, there is also an admin users, which is administrators mean it's a privileged user. The privileged user, they will be able to do extra tasks in our network. And this is where the attacker usually are after, okay? So once they compromise one of these users, okay, they wanted to escalate their privilege to be an administrator. So because I know that administrator is also a target of the attackers, so I wanted also to monitor the administrator activity. And the administrator activity I can monitor with an application called PAM, which is Privileged Access Management. And the Privileged Access Management also will send this data to my SIM. Now, if I manage to take all these logs, guys, I can assure you that you have a full picture for what's happening in every single machine, every single server in your organization. And you really need to have enough manpower here to watch the system 24/7, okay? Not only they need to be 24/7, they also need to be trained, okay, to how to look at the logs, how to analyze logs, okay? And we'll see, inshallah, next week, I'm gonna start to look at SIM from a perspective of installation and how it's been done. We will look at how the engineer will be able to handle a certain log, how it can read the log, how it can investigate the log. So next week, inshallah, after we collect these data from all different sources, whether it's coming from the user or administrator, or whether it's coming from the IT system itself, it will be centralized in one place. And then you have your team over here looking into the logs. So you really need someone who's trained to look at the logs and really can start to analyze this log and start to make sense of these logs and come up with a conclusion to verify if it's a real attack or no. Okay, because the main job here, if you have all the logs in the world, but you don't have the trained person over here to really look into the logs, it's exactly if you have this prison and you have all the camera here is connected to one certain location, but this certain location, you have no one is watching these cameras. So these cameras basically are useless. Okay, so you really need to have this basically, you have to be trained and sitting in this and watching these cameras all the time in order to identify any anomaly or anything suspicious within our network. Okay, and that's why you guys seeing and sometimes in the movie they start to attack this guy who's sitting in the camera here, because basically he is the one can maybe say, okay, there's a certain activity over here happening in this sector. I find it malicious. Let me call the extra forces. So they always wanted to take these guys down because this is the eyes that watch everyone, and that's why we need these guys to be always there, able to identify and really put severity for this kind of malicious activity and act upon this right away in a timely manner. Okay, so far so good, guys. Anyone have any issues with this diagram? And by the way, guys, this is exactly what we have already covered many times before, okay, which is basically the NIST cyber security framework. And I mentioned before to you the NIST cyber security framework It's just adjusting your mindset, how to look at the security within the organization, from the identification phase all to the way to respond and recover from an attack. So it's almost important to remember these 5 functions, and almost important also that you remember that these 5 functions are there to protect your systems. Okay, so in the first early beginning of this course, we look at the prevention techniques, which is coming from the protect. We looked also at the responding technique, which is basically after an incident take place. And we're looking at when we are within or trying to identify an incident, which is basically the detection area. So also when you implement your cybersecurity strategy, you need to implement, okay, I need to prevent, and I need also to detect. Why I need to detect, guys? Because I mentioned before, and I'm telling you now, there is new threats are there that is very advanced threats. They are really well funded, they are well organized, okay, and they are maybe nation supported. So these guys are really dangerous. So and they know about your preventive controls, and you know most of the time how to bypass this preventive controls, how they target human within your organization, how they target weak points within the organization. So these guys, really preventive controls will have, it will stop them to a certain limit, but I need to combine this preventive controls with detective controls. Another reason why we need the detective control, first of all, I cannot reach 100% preventive. This is not gonna happen. It doesn't exist. Okay, you cannot say that there is a prison which is 100% secure. You can say 90%, 95%. Okay, so it's not 100%. You have these advanced guys who is really after your infrastructure, like the APT or the nation states. And lastly, we are adopting a new technology like cloud technology, bring your own device. So you are opening the door for more threats to materialize. So you really need the detection control. So this is the 3 reasons why we need a detection controls. Advanced attackers like APT and nation states. We have also, we cannot reach to the prevention of 100%. There is no solution for this. And also the landscape of working from home, the cloud computing, bring your own device is also an aspect of this, why we need detection techniques. Okay, guys, so far so good. Any questions? Okay, good, alhamdulillah. So this is like a quick revision for what we have covered the last few days. Okay, so I will just go ahead and try to jump into the topic for the day. Again, what we covered also this week, we covered about different SOC security teams members and what is their functionality and what is their main job day to day. And again, guys, why I'm highlighting this, because this is mostly where the jobs are. Okay, so if you open now LinkedIn in Saudi Arabia and started to look for jobs, most likely you will find job SOC tier analyst, tier 1 will be there. You will find also the incident response will be there. So it's also important to tell you what each of these guys are doing. So we mentioned these guys first, they need to have a centralized solution, okay, to collect all these logs. And these guys will be able to identify or maybe look at the threats within these logs, okay, identify any compromise or any attacks that's happening, and then report it to the incident response. So you really need an engineer who will be able to read the logs. Okay, that's why I show you some, from time to time, I show you some logs coming from real devices. Okay, he will be able to understand these logs. He also understand what assets within this organization. So this is important to expose this engineer to what assets and what is important assets is within your organization, because this will allow him later on to do something called triage. And triage basically to give a priority for his case or his ticket, because these guys are working in ticketing system. So once he finds something suspicious, he give it a ticket, he give it an ID number, okay? He give it a priority or a severity level. And the severity level, it depends about what is the assets being attacked. Okay, and what is the likelihood of these threats to really compromise these assets? So they add this to also their tickets, the ticket severity. If it's a high severity, because it's really including a high important asset or crown jewels, as they said, within your organization. So this is what allows them to highlight this in their case and send these tickets to the incident response team. The incident response team, they will verify again one more time the incident, if it's a real incident or no. They do the containment, they do the eradication, they do the recovery. If you have a team within your organization to do digital forensics, they will do also the digital forensics if it's required digital forensics. If you don't require digital forensics, you go ahead and implement the IR response. If this case is really high and the severity of this case can really damage the entire organization, we can move to the disaster recovery planning and execution for the disaster recovery. Okay, guys. So this is what's happening here, and we mentioned also yesterday and the day before, there is two types of these teams. Okay, there is a type who work in a reactive mode, and the reactive mode means that I'm waiting for an incident to take place. I'm waiting for a threat to materialize, and then I will investigate, and then I will do my job to stop the incident. Back to my jail analogy. Okay, you have this guy over here who's watching the cameras. So you have this guy who's watching the cameras. He will be reactive. What we mean by reactive, guys, he's watching the camera 24 hours around the jail. He's looking around the surrounding area here. If he finds something suspicious, he will call the incident response team or the police to come and investigate this. Okay, but this is not enough. Why? If I wanted to be really proactive, maybe I can get a guy with a dog and some other forces to go and do patrolling around this area. So maybe I will get a team who is looking around this area, looking for threats. So looking who is hiding behind these trees, looking behind what I would say, looking behind the 10 miles away from the jail to see if anyone is around this area. Why? Because I wanted really to catch the threats before it even come close to my system and my people inside here. So there is a reactive technology which, hello?
Yes, with you, Mr. Shannon.
Okay, so basically you can see over here. Okay, can you guys put me in the mute, please? Who is now the Khalid? I can hear, guys, someone is talking in the background. Can you guys put me in mute, please? Sheikha, I don't know who. Allah, I don't know who is talking this time. Let me try to find out. Okay, so I can see you guys. Okay, Ghaida is the caliber. Okay. How to put Ghaida in mute?
I think she put herself in mute.
Ghaida is not in mute.
I mean, Sheikha.
I see. Sheikha or Ghaida? Okay. Ghaida is talking, right? I have no idea. I cannot see really. I saw only Ghaida is not in mute. Okay. I know how to mute her, but I don't see her name. She's in a mute right now. Okay, no worries. Thank you, Abassam. Ibtisam. Thank you, Asai. Okay, guys. So back to this. So the guy over here, if he noticed something suspicious, he can call the police or he can call extra forces. This is what we call reactive. Reactive means He's waiting for an incident to take place, so he's now can really go back and report someone to the authority. But if you wanted to be proactive, I wanted to be out there looking for the new threats, looking for the new attacks that may happen to my prison or to my military base, so I can really take some extra forces out from my forces inside and go around this area to do a patrol around this area and find any suspicious activity. And that's why we need someone, we call it a threat hunter. A threat hunter is working in a proactive mode to find out about threats and things that can really harm my organization later on. So the threat hunters are really qualified teams. They've been in maybe a little bit in maybe they have an experience as a tier 1, tier 2, and also they have analytic mindset. They can put hypotheses, they can search certain threats, they can use threat intelligence to really identify new threats, okay, and try to find these threats before it damage my information assets. So we talked about these guys, and I like the idea that they are not coloring their eyes. So it's I think a little bit funny to do this. Okay, so this is the threat hunters. We talked about them in this day 2. We talked about what methodologies used to identify and use threats. So this is starting with hypotheses, and then they will collect some data or artifacts from network and hosts, and then they will try to verify if their hypothesis, to do some analysis to really find out if their hypothesis is right or no, and then they come up with a conclusion. And then this conclusion, if it's an attack, they can send it back to the incident response and ask the incident response to work to find remedies for these attacks. Okay, guys? So far, so good for these teams and what they do and what is the difference between them. Okay. So another thing that I wanted also to highlight, guys, is the way that we new exploits or new malwares are really delivered to us is basically under the cybersecurity kill chain. And we talked about the kill chain, I think, in day 2, when we talked about how to break the kill chain, okay, and basically killing the kill chain, any attacks. You really need to understand the stages and methodology that the attacker will take to really exploit your systems. You really need to understand also their TTPs, their tactics, techniques, and procedures to really exploit the system or achieve one of these stages. So once you understand this, guys, it will be easy for you to say, okay, in delivery, I will do this and this. In exploit, I will do this and this. And this means I will do some preventive controls, and I will do also some detective controls. And one of the detective controls that I will say in delivery, would be the starting point of our today's topic, is a lot of the attacks right now are really attacking humans, like really attacking your users, okay? So there is so many tools out there. We will look at it, inshallah, these tools later on when we do our ethical hacking course, that can do something called harvesting. Harvesting means I wanted all the emails that's for a certain organization. Okay, I wanted some emails for a certain organization because later on I can target them with a phishing attacks. So there is some tools out there. It's called email harvesters. It will allow them to really collect the email address for a certain organization. So if I work, for example, for Tesla, I can get all the emails that's publicly known for Tesla. How would the email harvester do this? It will go and search the public domain at a certain domain, because any email address, guys, consists of 2 parts. Okay, you have the first part is going to be your name, which is going to be maybe your first name and last name. So there's a certain format here. Okay, but the most important thing for the email harvesters is the second part here. The second part, which is something.com. Something.com is basically here, it's a domain name. So this is basically the company that you're working for. So if you're working for Tesla, this domain will be Tesla.com. If you are working for Microsoft, it will be Microsoft.com. So what the harvester will do, it will go and search for something at Tesla.com, and any email address it will find using a public search like Google or maybe private servers, it will bring it to the attacker. So the attacker will have a full now idea about what email address you have in your organization. And we mentioned also that our users now are more mobile, like they are using a lot, they are moving a lot. So you will find them in a meeting outside the company, okay? They are at home having their laptops working, okay? Because of COVID-19, these guys are really also working from home. So they're using their email. Mostly the email system, guys, is really not secure by default. Why? Because the email itself, it's a technology that started back in maybe 90 something. This was the early beginning of the email system. And they use it initially to really exchange messages, which is instead of sending you an official letter, okay, using the mailbox, okay, I'm using you an email, okay, to be able to communicate and share information with you. So this is basically the first early beginning. When they started the emails was not secure. They didn't have any security mindset at that time. The most important thing is the email can go from one server to another server, and whoever has an mailbox at that time was really the most smartest guy. So I remember when I have back in 1998 or something, an email address, I was like really proud about myself, because this was the early beginning of Hotmail. Gmail was not even a thing at that time. So if you have a Hotmail email, if you have a Yahoo emails, this was like really the big thing at that time. But again, the email, let's go to the point that I'm trying to explain. The email system is not secure. Most of our email are going outside to the external world in a clear text. So if we have any attacks in between here, if we have any man in the middle of here, he can easily snip our emails and can read the content. And not only they can do the passive attacks of sniffing and seeing the content, they can actively being a man of the middle, and they change the content of this email and send it to the recipient and waiting for the recipient response, especially if the attacker managed to be in between you and the recipient. And that's why one of the reasons that you find a lot of movement right now to protect emails in transit. And in transit means you protect the content of the email while it's leaving the company and going to the outside world by implementing some technology. We'll talk about it, inshallah, today. Okay, so this is one thing. The attacker also find out that the user are sitting more at home. Okay, they find out they are checking their email all the time. Okay, they understand that maybe the users, if they are not well trained and they are not technology savvy, they are easy to trick. So it becomes one of the easiest way to really attack someone is to deliver him a malware, or to deliver him a suspicious file, or even to deliver him a presentation. I saw some of exploitation over an email. Someone send you just a presentation, and just by clicking the presentation, it will exploit a vulnerability within your computer. So there is so many ways they can embed some malicious file in a PDF and send you the PDF. And once you execute it, also it will execute once you start to read it, it will execute the virus within the PDF. So there is so many ways to exploit. And we mentioned if the user is not really well trained, they are not educated when it comes to the computer systems, they can be the weakest link. So we've seen in the last few years a trend of attacking mail systems and targeting user over the email. Okay, so what can we do right now as a cybersecurity engineer? So there is actually two ways to handle this. Okay, to handle the attacks. Some of them are preventive techniques, okay, and some of them are, as again, detective techniques. So the preventive techniques is to implement controls, like a preventive controls. I need a control to look at the incoming emails from outside my organization. And this kind of solution, they call it mail gateways, okay, or sometimes they call it mail firewalls, okay. But the name, the most really common name is mail gateways. And a mail gateway, it will be something between your mailbox and the external world. What we mean by this, so this is my mail gateway, okay? And the word gateway means your window to the external world or to window to the internet. So that this is mail gateway. I'm just giving you a small, like a tip how this being done, okay? You have the mail gateway, you have your mail server within the organization, and you have your mail client, which is maybe Outlook, or maybe a mail client in Mac OS. So the mail client, it will connect to the mail server, and the mail server will give a new updates to your mail clients. And then if you have an email to send outside, your email will go through the mail gateway. If there is an email coming from outside, okay, the mail gateway, using certain techniques, okay, we will talk about these certain techniques, will verify who is the sender, okay? Can we trust this sender, okay? What is the reputation for the IP address coming from this sender? Is this sender been involved in spamming before? And according to a certain criteria and certain policy you specify here in the mail gateway, it will either allow this email to reach your mailbox, so this email will be sent to your mailbox, and then the mailbox will be delivering this email to you. Or if it's not matching a criteria or policy here, or it failed the policy, what will happen? It will block this email, and this email will be in the quarantine. Okay, in this quarantine, guys, you can do your also malware analysis on this quarantine. You can check as an administrator, you can check the email yourself, okay, in isolated environment. And then maybe later on, if you find really it's a business use or business case email, you can release this email. Once you release it from the quarantine, it will reach to the end user. So this is basically how email is working right now. And mail gateways is very important when it's come to preventive. Why techniques? Because basically the mail gateway is your firewall. It will, but it's firewall not for the incoming packets, but it's firewall for the emails coming to your system. So it will allow some emails to get in according to a criteria. We have already talked about the criteria, and it will stop some emails. Again, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to build a line of defense against phishing attacks to my end user. Why? Because I'm worried that one of these users will get a phishing attacks, a phishing email, and he will click the link within the email. So I'm creating like a firewall here in the front of my mail server to really monitor and filter all this activity. Okay, again, preventive control are not perfect. Okay, so there is emails will slip for the mail gateway. There is emails will manage to really bypass your mail gateway. Okay, so I need a detection controls, and the detection controls maybe it's saying that I wanted really a copy of this quarantine emails that came here to analyze it later on in the SIM, my SIM, or I wanted copy from my SMTP, okay, to analyze it more. So I need basically logs from my mail gateway, and I need logs for my from my SMTP server or mail server. Okay, and these logs, I will have someone over here, which is basically an analyst or a security analyst. He can look at these certain logs, and using some certain tools that we will talk about, he can check the header. Where is this email coming from? What IP address is using? And using this certain headers and certain investigation, he can tell if this is an email spam or as email, or in this email is just a proper email, and he will let it to go to the user. Okay, guys, so far so good. Any issues in this? But again, why we explaining again the email? Because it's one of the techniques that the attackers are really getting very good about it right now, which is it allows them to deliver a malicious code. And we mentioned that one of the best tools in the hands of the attacker is creating malwares. Okay, they're creating different type of malwares. So yesterday we looked at that you investigate the malware itself. We talked about the malware analysis. We talked about the static way, the dynamic way, the hybrid way. And today we say, okay, we need to stop this malwares to getting inside the organization. So what is the attack vector? Is the delivery method. So the attack vector can be someone give you a USB, someone send you an email, someone you lure you to go to a website and download files. So I'm really today focusing on the email side, but there is so many delivery ways to an attack, and one of them the emails. It's easy because the emails can bypass a lot of our preventive control. It can bypass IDS, IPS. Okay, it can bypass a firewall easily. Okay, it can bypass even the proxy web application, because proxy web application doesn't really open the email and the content and read the content of the email. The proxy firewall, as long as the SMTP communication is good, it's matching a certain criteria, so it's not suspicious, it will allow the email to go. So I really need a server, and this server is specifically made to really filter your email messages. And this is what I have explained to you guys, the mail gateway, which is basically there's so many vendors. Microsoft has already one. McAfee, they have Iron Mail. I have used Iron Mail for so many years, so I know it's really good. Okay, we will talk about here today about email systems, talk about email crimes. We'll look at the email headers and what we can understand from these headers and how this headers looks like. We'll talk about stages to investigate, and maybe we'll talk about also some logs, how to extract some logs to use later on as an as a defense, as an artifacts or as a log data. Okay, guys. Okay, let me just go ahead. This is all, guys, is just small, as you can see. Let me just clear this quickly. So this is email terminology. I know some of you already knows all of this, but I will just go through it very quickly. You know what is BBC, BCC? BCC means that you are sending a blind carbon copy of an email. If you wanted to send someone an email and you don't want the recipient or the CC guys to see this email, okay, you add the BCC lines. If you wanted to add an attachment, you know how to add the attachment. Again, here's the email client. Is basically this email client. For example, this one over here. So this is my email client. I will be able to really to look at my email and see these emails. Okay, guys? I have no idea, but again, this is my email client. You can have Outlook clients. So this Outlook clients, if I type here Outlook, okay, I will have the Outlook clients installed. And the clients is basically how you communicate with the server. And again, if you guys doesn't know how email works, it works in the structure of server to client. So that we have a server, and this server we called it the email server, and we have a client. So the client in our case is basically asking the servers for the new emails, so it can retrieve new emails to the client. And if you have an email, you compose an email, you wanted to send it, you send it to the server, and the server usually it's called SMTP server. And we'll talk about SMTP in 1 second, but the SMTP server is a protocol that will allow you to send emails and receive emails. So that your server is going to be called the SMTP server. Okay. Once you send the email to SMTP server, because we are talking about the basics, the SMTP server, it will check the server sender ID. It will check the recipient ID. If you are allowed to communicate with this server because you are part of the same domain, it will do a quick lookup for the recipient. And the recipient, as you can guys remember, I told you any email address consists of 2 parts. The first, the name, and then and then the domain name. Okay, in order to get the domain name, because it's a name, you are sending your email as a domain name, you really need to consult the SMTP server. Will go and consult a DNS. So the DNS is very important part of your email systems. If your DNS is down, you will not be able to really deliver any emails. So what it happens is saying, okay, I know this domain. Let's say I'm sending an email to someone in Microsoft. So I know, for example, Muhammad@microsoft.com. Okay, so I really wanted to get the IP address of Microsoft.com, but I don't want any IP address in Microsoft. I wanted their SMTP server. Okay, SMTP server means a server that is responsible for email, because I wanted to open a connection with this server of Microsoft. So this is Microsoft. I wanted really to find out about their email address, so I can really send this email to Microsoft SMTP server, and then the server later on will deliver this email to Muhammad, who is sitting in his desk over here. So what happened is your DNS will started to do query for Microsoft.com for a specific email, okay, because this is an email. So Microsoft also does have a DNS, guys, okay, and this is the DNS for Microsoft. And the DNS in Microsoft, they have a specific record, and this record, we call it the SMTP record for the server, or MX record, okay? So I don't know if maybe you have seen this when we talked about DNS in the very early beginning of this course. This MX record, guys, is basically the IP address for this mail server. So the DNS will do a query, will ask for the MX record. The MX record will be communicated to your DNS, and then it will be communicated to your SMTP. Your SMTP will be able to open a connection with the SMTP server in Microsoft. They will say, I have a message for Muhammad. Microsoft, it will verify Muhammad mailbox is okay, and it's not full, and everything is okay. And they said, yes, okay, I have this guy. It will do certain check about you, okay, and I'll explain what is the certain check they will do. And once they find out that you are okay, and we have this mailbox, and you are not a spammer, you are not an authorized person who's sending this email, they will receive this bytes of the email. It will be residing here in the Microsoft mail server, and then Muhammad, when he's checking his email, he will be able to retrieve the message. Okay, guys? I know this is sound crazy in the first time, but this is how it happens. Okay, but I just tried to explain as much as I can. Are you guys clear about how the email is working right now? Hello?
Yes.
Sometimes you need to configure. Okay, I agree with Naif. Sometimes how you configure the email, Naif, it's very easy. How you configure that your email needs your email clients. Exactly. No, your email clients really need to understand who is the server they are dealing with, because now you have a client, okay? This client itself working in a module of server client module. And the server client module, in easy way, the client need to connect to the server, okay? So in order to connect to the server and retrieve messages, okay, you really need to configure here in your mail client, what is gonna be your server? So you really need to specify the domain or the IP address of your mail server. So this is how you configure, okay? And you guys really need to understand that before SMTP, there was certain other protocol that some of these protocol will allow you to send, and some of this other protocol will allow you to receive. So if you had an old version of SMTP, they used to call POP3, IMAP, and all this stuff, you will not only configure one server, you have to configure two servers. One of these servers are the sending one. So you're saying I'm gonna send using IMAP. So you have to specify the IP address for the IMAP. So you're saying my IMAP server for sending is gonna be this mail server. Also, I'm gonna retrieve messages from this server using a technology called POP3, or using a protocol called POP3. So I really need to configure in my client the POP3 server. Once you configure both of them, you will be able to send and receive. And in easy way, guys, so it's not to be anything special. It's easy. Why? Because as you're telling your client, look, if you want to get an email, go talk to this guy. Okay, how can I talk to him? I need a network connectivity between me and him, and I need to specify what IP address I will communicate with my server on, and which protocol I'm gonna use to communicate with, because both of them need to talk the same protocols. Exactly, any network, it consists like this. You have a server, okay, and you have a client, and in order for a client to access the server, you need to have a network connectivity. You need to be able to reach this server over a protocol. So for example, we talked about TCP/IP, and you need to also to be able to specify what is the IP address of this server. The same thing, in order to do this, We need also authentication sometimes, I agree. And the last, once you communicate, once you specify the IP address, once you specify the protocol, when you started to really talk to the servers, we started to implement access control. Access control means, okay, you are claiming that you want to connect to me as Muhammad, okay? And you wanted to retrieve all the emails from Muhammad. You need to specify the username and password for Muhammad. So the authentication is going to be the last part. Once the connectivity is okay, once the protocol is okay, now, okay, prove to me that you are Muhammad at Microsoft, or prove to me that you Naif at Gmail. Okay, so you need to specify the username and password, or even multi-factor authentication. Most of the big companies right now, you cannot reach their email server without multi-factor authentication. So this is also another preventive controls when it comes to, we can use PKI, agree, we can use PKI to also to secure the communication. But the problem with PKI, it's gonna only work to protect your email within the organization. So from your email server, connectivity, all your computer is gonna be encrypted. But what I'm really worried about when my email go outside the organization, okay? I cannot use PKI. You know why? Who can answer this question? Why I cannot use PKI when my email is going outside the organization? Or I can use it.
You don't have the private key anymore or something like that?
You need to create a private key for every single user within the organization. This is for one thing, okay? You need to also to create a public key to communicate with the outside. And in the other hand over the recipient, they need also to configure a private key for every single mailbox within the organization. So it's gonna be a lot of private keys and public keys just to send an emails in a secure way. And until now, it's not implemented. I will tell you what is implemented, which is making very close to encryption, but they are not encrypted yet, okay? But this is the introduction here over here, guys. We explained how it works. We explained what is the SMTP. I told you guys there is some protocols it used to be before, which is very common protocols, is POP3 and IMAP, okay? And these protocols are not really used anymore, specifically POP3, because POP3 does have a lot of vulnerability. This is one thing. And also POP3, it uses a certain methodology that download the file from the server, so the server doesn't not have your mails anymore. It will be on in your client. So if you have an issue with your client, you will lose all your old emails. So this is one of the things that POP3 is not now used anymore. To some old server are still there using POP3, but again, it's not very common to see it. You can set up POP3 server, but again, as I mentioned, it downloads the files in the user systems. So your emails are not anymore in your on the email server anymore. Okay, guys. So this is a basic. One thing that I wanted also to highlight in this specific thing, which is important, is you have an SMTP record, and this SMTP record is for Google, for example. Where this SMTP or MX record will be, it will be within your DNS. Okay, so when you try to send an email at Gmail, okay, so at gmail.com, what will happen is your DNS server will go and wanted an IP address for the mail server of Gmail. So it will ask, okay, the DNS here, what is the MX record? What is the mail server record for Gmail? So this is where it's gonna be here. This is the record. This is what the MX record. And as you can see, it's just specify in the first part the domain, and then in the second part, basically the SMTP protocol, and then lastly, it's going to be the domain google.com. Okay, so this is what happened. So if you send an email to someone in Gmail, your DNS will go and check it up. I wanted the IP address. It will give the IP address to your DNS. Your DNS will send it to the mail server, and the mail server started to the communication with Gmail server and started to send the bytes. Once the email reach here in the mailbox, once it reached to the server mailbox, the client will be able to retrieve it and see the data. Okay, guys. And just to make everyone is clear about this point, the mailbox is reside in the server, not in yours. The client is only something to retrieve and see whatever here in the Gmail. So for tomorrow, okay, if the Gmail server in the US went down, you cannot access your email anymore. You will not see any emails. Why? Because what you have as a client right now is an image what they have, okay, or a connection to the server. So if the server is not available, you will not be able to see the data. And that's why it's from time to time, guys, I would highly recommend, if you work in a big organization, to have an archive. And the archive system is basically a backup system for your email. So if in case of emergency, if your mail server is down, you will still have a copy of this email stored somewhere and you can recover. And this is the compensation control that most of the company are doing. So we talked about preventive control, detective controls and preventive controls. Okay. Shall we go for a break, or we wait a little bit till we finish this and we take a break in 10 minutes? Okay, let's finish this. Okay, so the email, it has, as you can see over here, guys, this ecosystems. Okay, if you have a user 1 or user A wanted to, with a simple mail client, we talked about what is a mail client, the Outlook or whatever, and this guy will be connected, or here it will be connected to the internet. Once she's connected to internet and she has something to send, or there's a new email for her, it will go and check the SMTP server. Okay, once she check the SMTP server, she will be able to get her emails. Also, she will be able to compose emails and send it to the SMTP server. The SMTP server, what is not really written here is the SMTP, in order to send any emails to outside, he really rely on DNS. Why? Because you are sending now an email to XYZ. Okay, in order to send something to the XYZ, if you guys remember the TCP model, the TCP IP model, SMTP is here. Okay, by the way, the SMTP is going to be in the top of the application layer in TCP. Okay, in order to really communicate, okay, you need also the rest of the puzzles here. You need the TCP communication protocol. Are we going to use a TCP or UDP? Okay, which port number I'm going to use? So if you're using, for example, SMTP, it will be 25. If you're using POP3, it's going to be 100, I think 10. Okay, so this is a POP3. So you need to specify TCP, and you need the source address and the destination address. The source address is yours, okay, or the email server's IP address, okay? And the destination IP address is going to be what? It's going to be the mail server you are trying to talk to, to talk to it. Okay? So and it will take that handshaking as well. So we'll see that today, inshallah, that's SMTP. They will send to each other hello messages in the beginning. When they started the communication, if this is an SMTP and this is an SMTP, the first early communication between them, they will send hello, and these guys will send hello back. That's mean I'm here, okay, I have an email for this person. These guys will check. Exactly, it's SMTP hello messages is I am alive, I'm here, this is the right IP address. Then the next check is going to be, do you guys have this mailbox in your domain? This guy will do a query. He will check if this mailbox is already there. If it's already there, he'll say yes. Okay, can I send him? He will check the quota or the mailbox size. If this mailbox size is full, he will not accept the email and send you a message saying the mailbox is full. If the mailbox is not full and the email exists within the other organization, it will deliver the message to him. This is basically what's happened recently. But again, I will go back to this area, guys, to understand why we need the IP address. Because your SMTP is an application layer protocol. It requires that you specify, are you going to use TCP or UDP and which port number? It will also require that your SMTP server, the IP address of this SMTP and the destination address of the SMTP you are sending to. So how you get this SMTP address? Okay, how do you get this? I just said I wanted to send to Gmail. Okay, so what happened is, in this case specifically, your SMTP server will go and say to the DNS, I wanted to talk to mail or Gmail. So your DNS will do the query. You remember that we talked about the recursive query, and and the recursive query will go to ask the .com, and then it will ask the com, and then it will ask the authoritative DNS within the other organization. Once it asks the other organization here DNS, it's saying yes, okay, I have a mail record, okay, a mail record or MX record for my DNS. It will be the DNS main function. It turn the name to IP address. Okay, it will send the IP address to your DNS. Your DNS will send this IP address to your SMTP, so it can fill this area, and then your message will be went to the frame layer or the data link layer and the physical layer, and the email will be sent. So this is, guys, the ecosystem. Okay. In reality, okay, does everyone understand what's happening right now in here? This is just an explanation for what's happened between the SMTP servers. Okay, Sarah is saying yes, Asail saying yes. Okay, alhamdulillah, we have 2 out of 40. This is a very good percentage. Okay, again, if you guys look at the real environment, how the email systems, I explained to you there's something called mail gateways, and the mail gateways is basically going to be your first line of defense against phishing email, spamming email, and all this non-authorized email that's come to your organization. So if you see this guy over here are sending an email, so his email first, it will go from his email client going to the email server. This is a SMTP server. The SMTP server will send the email to the mail gateway. It also rectify this email because I don't want someone from my organization to send suspicious email to everyone. So my email gateway also will look at the email before it reads my organization, and then it will go to the internet. And again, you know, we have the outer firewall. This firewall is useless in case of emails because the firewalls are really not checking anything. It's just allow everything connection over the port 25 to go. So it will not really stop an email to come to your organization or to stop someone to talk to your mail server. For once your email server you know, did this whole DNS thing that I told you about, it will reach to the emails gateway on the other side. The email gateway here, it will do some verification. It will check who is this email coming from. Okay, what is the reputation of this mail server? Is this mail server is part of a spam or part of phishing? So once the email gateway here filter the message, it's either to give the green light for the message to be sent to the mail server, or it either discard or quarantine this message according to the rules that you configured in the email gateway. And then later on this mail, it will reach to the mail server, and finally it will come to your client. And the client, even some of these clients, guys, they have second line of defense, which is a spam folder. And the spam folder also will do some sort of verification for the email sender. So maybe your email gateway got fooled by one of these guys. Your email client, sometimes it does have a spam filter check, and it will check the email and it move it to quarantine. And sometimes you find, you know, some emails are in spam filter. Is it because it has a high reputation? So who did this? Not the email gateway, the mail client filter. Okay, guys. Okay. Some of the really new technology. I will not say it's sorry. It's not a new technology. It's basically a scheme to secure email within individual and within the organization. So BGP is called Pretty Good Privacy. This is an email encryption methods to encrypt the email and to authenticate the sender. Okay, so basically I will know who's sending me this email. Okay, and and this email will be sent over an encrypted channel. So this is very good if you are one of the exercises I used to do with my students is allowing them to set up BGP client, and the BGP client, it allows them to transfer message over an encrypted channel and also achieve authenticity. So really the people, they know who you are. But in order to implement BGP, you really need a public key and a private key, and also the receiver will need to send you his public key. So, and you need to send to the receiver a public key. So now you'll be able to communicate. it's not convenient that with every single recipient you would do this, but at least for the emails that you think it's important and you don't want anyone to spy on you on the content, you should be looking at the BGP point, and I will explain how BGP works in 1 second. Also for big organization, guys, if I wanted really to implement a bit of security, a bit of authenticity, a bit of encryption, we have this secure multi-purpose internet mail extension, and this are very similar to BGP, but not in the individual level, but between the organization level. Okay, so you can build the organization level BGP we use in its routers. No, this is the different BGP. It's called also BGP as a routing protocol, but it's called also pretty good privacy when it comes to the mail. So one of them are a routing protocol. I wanted to say that, but I said I don't want to confuse anyone. But the BGP, what we mean here is pretty good privacy. Okay, so this is the secure multipurpose. Is also a way to ensure confidentiality, integrity, availability, okay, over email server. Okay, so how this works again? You will have your plain text, and then plain text is encrypted with a session key. The session key and the plain text will be sent, will be encrypted using your private key, and then will be sent over to the clients over here. The clients, he has your public key. He will be able to decrypt the message and see the content of this message. Okay, and one of the things that's a tricky question I find in some interviews, they always ask the the interviewer ask always the people who he wanted to hire, if I wanted to really to compress something, shall I encrypt first and then compress, or shall I compress first and then encrypt? And the right answer is you compress first, okay? Because if you encrypt first, if you try to compress later on, you are compressing basically garbage. So it doesn't make any sense to compress garbage. So this is the scheme over here. So I think this is a good time to really have some break. So we'll take 15 minutes break, guys. And then we come after 15 minutes to talk about the rest of the lecture. 15 minutes is okay? Okay, so I will see you guys in 15 minutes, inshallah. 10:30, we'll come back.